So it's been long I uploaded a Jubilee reaction video. Do white people experience racism? I feel like we're at a point in the world now where anybody feel collect. Everybody experiences racism one way or the other, either at their workplace, their neighborhood, society, wherever, even in church. I feel like everyone experiences racism one way or the other now. I mean, that's just my opinion though.
Middle ground is a social experiment that brings humans with opposing beliefs or experiences together. These discussions may contain viewpoints that are the result of misinformation. Remember to seek out experts and to be critical of your own biases while forming an opinion. Please see the humanity in each participant, and as always, we encourage empathy. Two things can be true. You can have had a very hard time. Privilege is not just limited to white people, but to say white privilege doesn't exist from a historical context to me is respectfully absurd.
Middle ground.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. White people also experience racism.
Everyone should step forward, right? Okay.
I think racism is definitely not a one race against the other. It goes all ways. It's not. It doesn't matter if you're white, if you're black, if you're Asian. It doesn't matter. You can experience racism no matter what color your skin is.
I think that people have a propensity to kind of have an aversion towards what's different from them. I've been called a cracker before. I've been told I was going to get beaten up because I was white. I would argue that on a systemic level, white people don't experience racism the same way a lot of other races experience racism. But
That's
I would
true.
say on an individual level, any group is capable of being racist towards another group as well.
So the argument against this position frequently is that racism is a system, not a sentiment in the United States. And I agree with that really strongly, but at the same time, I'm Jewish and racially white and have definitely experienced racism, discrimination. The paradox is that most of that racism is coming from white people or European society, white nationalism, etc., that's directed at Jews. So I'm Dane and I'm Jewish. I'm proud of being Jewish and being connected to an ancient religion and culture, but I'm not proud to be white, I would say. White privilege, I think, is an aspect of American society. I think it exists. When I go to a job interview, I don't have to worry about my hairstyle or the way I normally speak or my name. And that's something perhaps a black person would have to worry about.
Can the disagreeer step forward? So I just want to say that I want to validate everyone's individual experiences. I do also believe that white people experience bias, prejudice, but the reason I did not step forward is because, by definition, racism is tied to power and economics. You talked about systemic discrimination. I don't feel white people experience racism by definition and by actual concept.
What is the definition of racism and who wrote that definition?
In the late 1500s, early 1600s, there was slavery. They started bringing over slaves, but there was really no concept of classifying people in terms of race. It's just we're bringing these people over and they're slaves. What ended up happening is some of the slave owners who were white started mixing with some of the slaves. And now here you have these black people that look like the people that are owning things. So they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. The theory of race was formed to classify a group of people who would be lesser than and have less economic power. And this would be imposed against them for hundreds of years. So that has not been the white experience in this country, but it does not invalidate the things that white people experience. It's just not racism by definition. Is it prejudice? Is it bias? Is it wrong? Yes.
Mine is simple. If one person treats another person differently because of the color of their skin, to me, that's racism. I will tell you that I was stopped by the police plenty of times when I was a young man. And I will also tell you that I then decided to spend 35 years as a policeman. I'll tell you that I stopped lots of kids coming home from school. Depending on who it was that I stopped, the first thing out of their mouth would be, you only stopped me because I'm black. would say, you're driving a sports car with a back window that's this big, I can't see who's driving, and I stopped you because you're doing 95 and a 55. I had no idea who I was pulling over until I stopped you. Now, if I treat you differently because you're black, then I'm a racist. But if I write you the same ticket that I was going to write you before I knew who was behind the wheel, I'm not.
So I'm glad you used that example, and I want to commend you for your service for our country. But I do want to say, because I've actually taught classes for the LAPD for their cadets about these issues. But what I can say, which is a statistic, and which is also a fact, is that 60% of our prison population is African American.
Different issue.
Yes, but let me finish, please. Is African American males, right? When you go into a system and you are kept in that system and you're cycled through probation and there is a systematic sequence of oppression, that's not happening to white males. So it's bigger than just the stop itself. It's the system. My name is Sierra. I'm an actor, a speaker, and a human rights activist. I'm very proud to be African American, to be Black. The challenges that come with being Black, also being a Black woman, are very real. I'm at a place in my life where I'm acknowledging these things are real. Discrimination is real. The systematic oppression of Black people is very real. But I will succeed in spite of that.
The police force is foundationally racist.
See how no white person steps forward. None of the whites step forward. There is no argument there that the US police force is just not in a good place when it comes to handling cases that have to deal with people of color. Let's
I
just
want
say
to
what they have
start
to
off
say.
by saying I don't think that every cop out there today is racist.
Same.
No,
I think there are a lot.
obviously, not all cops are, you know, racist or against black people. But
Of them who are really doing good work. What I know from the establishment of the policing in the United States, that is directly from the slave catchers who were hired to catch runaway slaves and bring them back home.
Yeah, I agree that all cops aren't racist. I had plenty of interactions with police that were fine, but I was told by a former police officer who was, a cop who decided he didn't want to do that anymore, that the training is pretty much specialized for only colored people, especially black people. That if you're around them, they're the most dangerous. So you have to act in certain situations or react in certain situations.
I think I just really want to emphasize that I really think that there are some officers who are white that don't even believe that they're doing anything that may be racially motivated because they're simply doing what they were taught to do.
I come from a police family, and I like to add they do offer diversity trainings in the academy. So either it needs to be more extensive, or maybe we need to take it a step back and fix the selection process, because that process could be inherently racist. Hello, my name is Nia, and I am Black. I'm proud of my race because when I look back historically at what people of my heritage have gone through and to see where we are now, it's remarkable, and it definitely pushes me to continue to be resilient and innovative as they were.
Historically, people formed groups, villages. Some people were hunters, some people were farmers, and then you had whoever was going to protect the group. And over hundreds of years, thousands of years, whatever it is, that's how we wind up having cops, firemen, armies, and navies. Community policing as a theory is a good idea. As a practice, it has some hiccups. When I show up at your house because you and your husband got into it and he beats you up and I'm friends with him, so do I want to take him to jail? He's my friend. Or I live in the same neighborhood and I go deal with some guy who's a really bad dude and he says, I know where you live, I know where your kids are. So to some degree, we have to have a little separation. This is going to get into a hot button topic, but I will tell you that, when I watched the horrible video of George Floyd, I will tell you that I can justify many of the things that happened, but I cannot justify 9 minutes on his neck or back. But what I can also tell you is I, as a policeman, and this is my personal opinion only too, the officer who was on him for 9 minutes, he probably spent too much time in the same neighborhood dealing with the same problems over and over again that
At this point, he's just making excuses for the officer. That's just it. Everybody saw the video. Everybody knows what happened. He's complaining that he can't breathe. Everybody around is pointing out the obvious as well. That this man is complaining that he cannot breathe. Okay, stand him up, pin him to the car, and handcuff his hands behind his back. No, that you don't want to do that. You've come here to now make excuses for him and say he's experienced this a lot in wherever he comes from. That's why he did not know what to do. Come on, man. Come on.
jaded.
Isn't that what being a police officer is?
The social
That's the
service
job.
job.
And you're assigned to that district or that community.
But I think you need to move around so that you get to see other things. You don't become that jaded.
The police, no matter what your race is, we have to be integrated all together with the community. And it doesn't have to be community policing, but we all have to understand each other more. I think cultural competency would be very helpful. Like, that's my issue. Whether or not the foundations of the police force was or still was racist, now we can change that, but it starts with cops. Like, at the end of the day, it's the bad police officers that are our issue. Not all police officers, but the bad police officers, we need to vet them out, and the good police officers, we need to, encourage them to be amongst the community.
How do we vet them out?
By making the police unions accountable, because I feel like that demographic of officers, they're actually making things a lot worse for the other officers that are actually just trying to do their job. I think that we need to get some type of real accountability. That I don't think the police should be policing themselves. So when those cops that aren't upholding their oath, they can be properly removed instead of getting all of these passes. The bad police officers, I hate the term like the bad apple. It's like, no, you're a faulty grenade. Like, you're ruining your whole department reputation.
Yeah.
I feel like I was held up to higher standards working at Whole Foods sometimes. I got 3 chances out, but like Derek had so many
17 reports.
17 reports. It's like, get him out of there. What are you guys doing?
Do you think police officers, and I genuinely am curious, do you think they should get paid more?
I think police officers should get paid more. I also think police officers should do less. Why do I get sent to all of the mental health cases? Why do I get sent to all of these things? Now, I'll tell you why I get sent to them is because we'll stop sending the police there, and then something horrible and tragic is going to happen, and they're going to say, why didn't we have a cop there?
Do you think we need to have different divisions like mental health and just other, or maybe even specific police that are just for the schools? Like, do you think that would help with a lot of the issues?
No. We do have specialized police officers in certain things, but if we keep specializing and we get so compartmentalized that I can't go, I'm right across the street from you when you're screaming for help.
Yeah.
That's not what I do.
You
gotta go find the guy that deals with screaming women or whatever it is. My name is Jimmy, and I am a retired police officer. I'm not going to tell you that there are no racists on the police department.
Because
I don't think blacks were historically treated fairly under the law. I think that we have made great progress, great strides. I think we have to continue to get better, but I also think we probably see racism to this day in places where it maybe isn't.
I sometimes wish I was a different race.
Come on.
I'd say not so much these days, but definitely 100% when I was a kid, I wish I was white. I grew up with my white mom. I didn't see my black side of my family after a certain point. grew up in a small town. I was often the only student of color, definitely the only Black kid. And I had this kinky hair. I couldn't figure out how to work with it. And everybody also would call me an Oreo. It was always just being othered. And so being a kid, you know, you just want to fit in. And for me, I wanted to be white. I just wanted to look like my mom, wanted the nice straight hair. I just wanted to feel like included.
You know, I remember in elementary school, like I was thinking, no man is ever gonna like me because I freaking look like this. And I just remember hating my hair because as soon as puberty hit, it was just it just blew up, and people kept on asking, do you even need a pillow to sleep at night? I'm like, I can't stand these questions. I can't do this. I'm Jordan, and I am biracial. I think being biracial is definitely like living in the in-between, because culturally, yes, I grew up white, and I completely know that. Like, I was raised by my white mother, but then there's also a part where race is perceived, and it's what people put on you and how they respond to you in your everyday life.
I feel like a lot of biracial people always or have had a past by which they wanted to, change their skin color. Because I hear a lot of stories that I wasn't really close with my, African side of the family. I was close to the American side. I went to an all American school, and I was the only black child there. So it's understandable why they felt that way. Because they just want to fit in. Yeah.
It's so interesting because I grew up in predominantly non-Black communities, and for some reason, still like being the minority at home in the family, as well as in school and in the world, I was always so proud to be Black. I actually really yearned to be around other Black people. So thankfully in college, that was an experience where even though we made up a small community, I was still able to, okay, this is like people look like me.
I was in the military for 6 years, and I was usually the only Jew in my battalion. And I think that isolation produced a sort of pride and understanding of who I am, and where I come from. So
I have never wanted to be anything different than what I was, but that's because I really never thought about it. And to your all's point, maybe, I don't know, but maybe people treated you that way because there is this sense of wanting something that I haven't ever had before. I'd love to have a Lamborghini. You know what I mean? It's different than any other car I've ever had. It's different than what I grew up with.
I think personally for me, I mean, I was actually adopted by white parents in a very diverse family. I think 6 out of the 8 of us are all adopted, all different races. I kind of have my own story apart from everyone else. And the same for everyone else that was adopted in my family. They have their own story. I always had pride in it, but at the same time, my parents are my parents no matter the color of the skin. It's the people who raised me. And they raised me just not looking through the lens of race. And that's what I've always done. And I never wanted to change my race at all. I'm Joshua, and I'm Black. I've never experienced racism. I've experienced stuff from people from my own race. I grew up in a white family by white parents. I was constantly called whitewashed. It upset me, but I didn't let it get to me. Being Black in America, to me, is just being an American in America, just like any other person.
White privilege exists.
This one, everybody should come forward.
I mean, America was founded
That's good.
by white people, for white people at the time. All of the institutions were designed to benefit white people. So, I mean, of course, white privilege lingers into society today. You can't deny that.
Where I would argue with you just a little bit is I think we throw out the term white privilege far too often for things that aren't necessarily white privilege.
I've got to agree with you completely on that one. I think there's generational white privilege for sure. But I think now it's almost used as a reason to not try as hard. If we stop doing that, just really like work for it and not use white privilege as an excuse, then we can really get somewhere as in the Black community.
I would respectfully disagree. Like, all of that is true to an extent. Like, I graduated university during the pandemic, the height of it. Went abroad for university. I got 2 degrees. I graduated with honors. Learned to speak 2 languages. Should have been able to get a job right away, right? No. It took me 9 months before I was able to get a job. Had to go completely outside of my field. But then when I looked at all of my white colleagues who were in my program, all of them were hired immediately.
I need to introduce you to my daughter. She's white. Took her a long time.
And I'm not saying that. I'm saying
And she didn't get her job in what her degree is in either.
This is exactly the same thing as the racist cops. Yes, we have racist police officers, and yes, we have non-racist police officers. Yes, white privilege exists, but it doesn't build, like, it's not a foundation for every white person. It doesn't account for every white person's success. It might happen for, Timmy and the rest, but it might not happen for your daughter. But it's there. We all know white privilege exists. Just because your daughter did not enjoy it in aspect of getting a work doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You get it?
I respect that, but my point is saying me comparing myself to the white students who were directly in my position, they're successful, I'm not.
This country was founded upon white people coming and then putting in act Jim Crow and other laws saying that if you are not white, you are genetically inferior. You are not even a person. And some of those laws are still, and those systems are still in place today. Two things can be true. You can have had a very hard time. Privilege is not just limited to white people, but to say white privilege doesn't exist from a historical context, to me, is respectfully absurd.
Something that I learned about recently is the privilege that exists in the medical field, specifically relating to the birthing process in giving epidurals. There was a study that's recently or was debunked that said that Black people have a higher tolerance for pain, which then has been falsely used by people who help support births in being hesitant to provide the epidurals for Black women giving birth. A lot of women die in childbirth. I don't know the exact statistics. So
3 times more likely Black women are to die.
Thank you. The fact that I will be taken seriously, more seriously than a Black woman in my place if I should be giving birth at some point, I see that as just an absolute privilege. My name is Bryn, and I just graduated, and I'm currently gaining hours to becoming a licensed therapist. As a therapist in school, we're taught to approach things with what's called cultural humility. Cultural humility is being curious, and instead of trying to have all the answers, working collaboratively with the client to kind of understand where they're coming from.
I have been fetishized for my race. The standard one, oh, you're pretty for a Black girl. I'm like, that's not a compliment. That's so weird to say. And like one of the go-to pickup lines for men, they're like, oh my God, what are you? Like, this is not cute. I'm tired of having this conversation. This is lame. Yes, I know I have green eyes, hazel eyes. Like, let's move on.
I think Black women in particular are just extremely sexualized and fetishized. Every day I go out, and making sure that my outfit is, okay, because I don't want to draw certain attention. The way I wear my hair, if it's in an afro, if it's in puffs, if it's in braids, I'm going to get treated differently. Every single day something happens.
So there's a form of positive anti-Semitism where Jews are perceived as like being put together, coming from money, being doctors, lawyers, and women are attracted to those sort of things. And also too, like, all Jewish men are circumcised. Some women have that preference. So I've definitely experienced it, but I feel like it's a sort of subtle, trivial thing. Like it never really bothered me, but it's occurred nonetheless.
Yeah, I've had experiences in high school, college. People ask me to stop me, mainly women. Like, oh, are you Egyptian? Or are you Black in this or Black in that? There's always Black in something else. And I'll, let them know what I am, and they're like, "Oh, that's exotic," or something crazy. You know, my name is Dino, and I am biracial. I don't want people to think that I'm like split between being black or white. I acknowledge that I'm mixed and I'm biracial, but for the most part, growing up, I was always considered black. I consider myself black. My family did as well. So I don't think we should live in a colorblind society. But I also don't think we should stay stuck and feel like we can't move forward and still thrive and accomplish things because of our skin color and where we live in America.
I would just have a question for everyone who stepped forward. I'm just curious how that's like. What's it like?
Exhausting.
It sounds exhausting.
Yeah, I think Black women historically have a really interesting relationship with desirability. Culturally, it seems we're not desired. And then when we are, we're being fetishized. So it's like, okay, we're usually not desired, but now we are. Am I supposed to lean into this fetishization?
I think just being a woman, we deal with certain things every day, specifically being a Black woman, being fetishized. It's interesting because especially in my industry, because I'm there to work and be professional, I'm just super professional and I don't give any attention to that at all, that kind of energy, then I'm an angry Black woman. So I think that it's just really,
you can't win.
It does feel like that. So yeah, that you can't win sometimes.
There's also a flip side to it. It's like, for me specifically, I'm light skinned, I'm amongst majority dark skinned people, and people will deem me or deem other light skinned people as a certain way, as either weaker or less than, or just like, okay, you're lighter than, so we're going to be so pro black that we're never going to consider you as one of us. You're just other.
Well, that like touches just on beauty standards in the Black community, and that's colorism. Like I've even been told, "You're beautiful. You're not Black." It's just like these little things.
Yeah. Or you must be mixed with something,
yes.
Right?
Yeah. My name's Christina, and I'm biracial. I have been fetishized for the color of my skin on both sides. Black men will be really into me because I'm light skinned, or other men who are not Black might be into me because I am that Black girl, but maybe I'm not too Black, and that for whatever reason is appealing. Being deemed as exotic or something other is just very problematic, and that plays into a lot of issues of colorism within the Black community at large.
We need reparations for the Black community.
At this point, I'm not even reacting. I'm just learning.
Individualized paychecks. Like I don't think that's gonna work. But I think pouring funds into communities who could really use it, building jobs there, more education there, more opportunities would do so much. That's how I see it should be.
Anytime that Black communities in the U.S. try to, pull themselves up by the bootstraps, they were attacked. I think it was in Tulsa, they bombed the city. Black Wall Street, it was completely destroyed. So again, something needs to be done.
When the Civil War ended, there was a representative from Ohio, I can't remember his name, but he was a radical Republican and advocated for the phrase 40 acres and a mule for every emancipated slave. So there was supposed to be reparations, and there never was. And I think especially as a Jewish person, Jews received reparations for the Holocaust and are still receiving them. And in my mind, there's no amount of money that will ever undo the wrong of the Holocaust. All the money in the world will never make it right. But I think the idea and principle of reparations is good. Logistically, I don't know how it would happen.
I just wanted to say the reason I stayed back was because I wasn't entirely sure what was meant by reparations. But your example of the Holocaust, I would say that I agree.
Similar reason, when I think of reparations, I think of something similar to a stimulus check. My worry is with the lack of financial literacy, will we actually make strides? So I would love the idea of investing money into programs in underserved communities, something like that. But I do have a fear that even if we did have the money, without that generational knowledge of how to take care of our finances, that it would just deplete and defeat the purpose.
But even if that were to happen, though, I still think that would still be the right step. We'll give these people the funds or whatever. We'll give them our promise, and if they float or sink or whatever, that's on them. At least, we as a country took the right step.
I am all for money going to the community. I am for that because the communities right now are the way they are because of things in the past. But to give out checks to individual people, there's a difference between learning from the past and then still getting caught up in the past. I mean, if I had a time machine, I could go back in time and be like, hey, you never gave us the 40 acres and a mule. I would be all for that. I would get on that for the people who were affected and actually went through slavery. But in today's age, like no one's experienced it and gone through it. Yes, the communities are taking hit by that, but I mean, I've never.
You don't think your ancestors experienced slavery?
I think they do, but I haven't. I've never been in it, so why should I get a check from somebody else who never put it? It should be going way back.
So what about the people who are the descendants of the slave owners who are still reaping the financial benefits of your ancestors who slaved in those fields for literally generation after generation? You don't think that during that time your great-grandfather could have been building a business that could be flourishing by now? And you would have a multi-million-dollar franchise as they do off the backs of others. You don't think that deserves some rectification for you in the present time?
To be honest, like, no, because it's something that happened in the past. Again, I haven't experienced it. I'm doing fine right now. I'm doing fine, and I'm not going to be all upset over somebody else's ancestors who I don't even know who enslaved my ancestors. I don't need it. I have no reason to have it.
So for me personally, I'm not upset about it, but I do feel my grandfather, on his side, they were the first family in the state of Texas to actually file for reparations. And for me, I'm succeeding in spite of that. But to this gentleman's point, when the government says, hey, we're going to do a thing, obviously the government in itself saw the weight and the error wrong, just as the German government did. I think if I want to buy 90 gold chains, that's my business. I think it would be unfortunate, but I think that if I'm entitled to something, I think it should be in the same fashion that the people of Jewish descent got it. I think it should be in the same fashion that the people that are Japanese descent got it. So you might think it doesn't affect you, but overall, I think that we have been greatly impacted by slavery, even up to current. I just choose not to focus on it nonstop so it doesn't become something that holds me back. But I definitely think it's something that we're entitled to.
Thanks, guys.
Well, that was not much of a reaction. I was literally just learning. Like when it comes to racism, it's just something that won't go away. Racism is always going to be there, even if you don't experience it directly. Somebody else experiencing it. But yeah, hope you guys learned something from this video as well, because I did. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on your post notifications so that you know when next I post. Thanks for watching. You guys in the next video. Peace.